Chris, you are the fucking first person I ever met who completely healed from ankylosing spondylitis. You did what is supposed to be a miracle for conventional medicine. We can learn so much from you. Now, you are a certified autoimmune healer and you are helping others to recover from AS. Today, we will explore your story, how you heal, and the tips you use to stay pain-free. So let's start with a set of fast questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Fantastic. How much pain did you have last year from AS from 0 to 10?
0.
Can you eat a full pizza without pain?
Absolutely, yes, certainly.
How long can you be sitting on a chair without pain?
Indefinitely.
And what medication are you taking nowadays?
None at all.
Wow. Like for me, really, for me, this is a miracle. And I'm sure that for many of the people that are going to watch this video, too. Like you are not following, like you right now, you are not having medication, you are not having pain, and you can eat. I know that you eat quite healthy, but you can eat a pizza or you don't have the limitations of having to follow a super restricted diet.
Absolutely.
So there is so much that I would like to learn from you of how you do so. But before we start, before we get into how you do it, I will like to understand the beginning, like when and how ankylosing spondylitis started in your life. How was your diagnosis?
Well, my diagnosis came several years after my symptoms began. So my symptoms began in my mid-30s. I was working in an office, fairly stressful. I was experiencing pain in my lower back. Not all the time. I'd get pain that would come and go. And it was never awful pain. It was pain that bothered me at the time.
When you
And
say
I
never
showed my
awful, what is never awful? Like from 0 to 10, how painful it was at that moment?
it was more of an annoyance. I'd probably say at its worst, it was maybe 3 or 4. So
How many
it
years?
wasn't awful.
How many years ago are we talking about?
We are talking 20 years ago, 20 years. And this continued on and off for maybe 5 years. So it was something I went to see chiropractors. I tried a special way of sitting at work. I tried looking at my desktop, my arrangement, my work arrangement. I would do yoga, I could do stretching. You know, when the pain was there, it was bad. It was more, it was hard, but it wasn't limiting me badly. And then the pain would go away. I'd in those times when you're pain free, you don't even kind of consider it. So and that stayed for about 5 years, and then the real onset, I'd say, of when the symptoms really stepped up was when I was 40 years old. So that is 14 years ago. I'd been for a long weekend away, and we've been walking, and we'd actually got lost when we were walking. So I ended up walking miles and miles, and I developed pain in my foot, and I start to think, okay, I'm wearing the wrong boots, I'm wearing the wrong shoes. You know, somehow I've just overdone it and I've hurt my foot somehow. But this pain in my foot didn't go away after months even. In fact, if anything, it got worse. And I developed a limp, a shuffle, and I started looking into all this sort of heel pain, plantar fasciitis kind of problem. That's what I was thinking it was. Again, I thought it was some isolated problem that was probably caused by bad footwear, or, you know, I thought there was just a mechanical reason to it, or a slight injury.
Yeah, that at this moment you didn't have any idea about your diagnosis
no
or
idea,
nothing
but
immunologic.
I had no idea it was anything like that. So this is really 5 years of undiagnosed symptoms. And I didn't put it together. I didn't put the pain in my back and the pain in my foot together. But, I was experiencing pain by now nearly all the time because I had this pain in my foot. And I don't know if I'm sure many people out there, I don't know if you, Alvaro, have experienced pain in your foot and plantar fasciitis, but it's really drives you mad because the first thing you do, you get out of bed, the first thing you do is you put your foot on the floor, and your first experience of the day is pain. And
it was always on the same foot?
Well, it began in one foot and then it kind of went into the other foot as well. And when I really knew something was wrong was when the toes on both feet started swelling up. So I was getting these kind of sausage toes where they're just, your toe would just like grow enormously. And that's when I started thinking, hold on, there's something, there's something more wrong here than just some, I realized something was really up. And slowly the pain would kind of creep up the body over a period of weeks. And I began to notice that the pain would shift. So, I'd get a pain in my shoulder for like a few days, and then that'd go away, and I'd start getting a pain in my neck or my pain in my lower back. And it was like the pain would hop around the body. But really, once I saw my toes just growing.
Yeah, that was like a clear red flag, like something wrong is happening here. I need to check it out.
What is happening here, So that was the onset.
And in that moment, what was your level of pain from 0 to 10? And how often were you having pain?
Yeah, I mean, with the foot pain, it was continual, so it didn't go away. It was constant. Okay. And that's what I mean by that maddening thing. Every time I walked anywhere, you'd be experiencing it. Or lying down, you'd experience it.
And for how long you were in that situation?
Well, that went on and on for years, basically. Yeah.
How was that affecting your life?
Yeah, I mean, this is when it began to affect my life noticeably and definitely, because as I'm sure when you start to experience pain, and also when you've got something very visible like a limp, everyone's asking you, what's wrong? You hurt your foot. And I'll be like, well, I don't really know what's wrong, but it's very obvious. And also it begins to affect the way you see yourself as well, because you're limping everywhere, and you feel you can't just run. I had young kids at the time. My kids would be running around. I'll be like, trying to sort of hobble after them, and just everyday tasks become more difficult and really quite painful. So like going shopping, you walk around the supermarket, and you had to limit. You had to think about, okay, can I make this walk to the shops or can't I?
Listen. And let me ask you, I have two questions that I am thinking, like I will be thinking if someone is hearing you. Like the first one will be, what, like at that moment of your life, how were your habits? Like how were you taking care of your nutrition, emotions, and movement?
Well, I was seeing a chiropractor, and I've always had a sort of keen interest, I'd say, in health. So, for instance, I've been doing yoga for decades, actually. Not always regularly, but I feel like it's good practice. I think I may have been going to a gym. I can't remember. And I cycled everywhere. So I considered myself not particularly fit, but healthy in terms of health. Health had thankfully never been an issue for me, really. And I would drink, but moderately. I didn't have many kind of bad habits. I felt like I had a generally quite a healthy, moderate lifestyle.
Okay.
There were stresses, there's like everyone has stress in life, and my job at times would be stressful. The whole family I guess you call it family and work balance. That was difficult to manage with young kids. There's a lot on your plate. I was always rushing around places. So there was that kind of stress that was definitely in my life. But I didn't have any sort of dreadful kind of bad health habits. Food wise, I was mostly vegetarian. Yeah, occasionally ate meat, but I guess I was just eating vegetarian most of the time.
Okay. I will be considering, like, at the beginning, we hear from you that you don't have pain right now and that you have been 7 years. I know that you have been 7 years almost pain-free.
Yeah.
Following a normal life. So if I am hearing you, like, basically what comes to my mind, the first thing will be like, okay, maybe you didn't have AS. Maybe you have another thing. So how, at what moment did a doctor diagnose you that you have AS? What were the signals that prove that you have AS? Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah. So this happened over a period of Christmas time, when basically my symptoms just went through the roof. Everything just really, I guess you call it a flare, an explosion of symptoms all over me. So it went from the feet to the knees, incredible pain in my hips, so that I just couldn't walk. I couldn't really cycle. Just pain all over that just went just through the roof. So my doctor, I went to my normal doctor. He couldn't really figure things out. He thought it was a mechanical problem with my hip, but he referred me to a rheumatologist. The rheumatologist, it took a while to get the appointment, and I was really disappointed because I knew something was seriously wrong. And I ended up seeing that the rheumatologist didn't even see me. He basically sent his they took blood tests and that, but he just sent his kind of understudy to actually physically see me. And that they came back saying, it was something like you've got a rheumatological condition, but it was a very blanket umbrella term. So they weren't really specific about what was wrong. And and they prescribed me methotrexate, which is a pretty strong drug that is an autoimmune suppressant. So yeah, they told me you've got something, but they weren't really specific about it. Took the blood test.
In that test, I am curious about something. In that test, first of all, did you have any indicators of inflammation high, like
Yes.
PCR, yes. And did you have also? Did they test you if you have the HL27 positive?
They did, yes, and I am.
And you are okay.
Yeah.
So you were positive.
And also my inflammation was very high. It was extremely elevated. Well, I don't know what extremely elevated is, but I think my ESR was over 100 when it should have been 0 to 10. My CRP, I can't remember it exactly, but it was strongly elevated. And, I was suffering, I was experiencing, without a doubt, I was experiencing full-on inflammation throughout my whole body, particularly at the joints.
Okay, no, technically, the diagnosis is basically, well, it depends on the country, but is depending if you have like 2 or 3 symptoms that are correlated with AS. It can be like pain in your joints, moving like joints more during the night than during the day, stiffness in the mornings, also in the hips, in the spine, or if you have the gene, the HLA-B27 positive, or also if you have inflammation in your eyes, there is like a collection of flags. And when you have 2 or 3 of these flags, you have AS. That actually is quite interesting for me. Sorry for interrupting you about this, but for me it's very interesting because actually it's not an illness by itself. Like it's more like an umbrella of symptoms that when you match a few of these symptoms, they classify you in having that illness. But technically, there is nothing like you don't have a tumor, you don't have a structural problem. There is nothing that you can touch. Like you have a collection of symptoms that we label as AS. So
Yes.
in your case, you have a full range of the collection of symptoms that they were
Well,
considered AS.
Yes, by this particular rheumatologist. But I wasn't satisfied with this rather vague diagnosis. I was also very, let's say, depressed to be given like a bag full of a really strong drug to take. When if you read the side effects, they're not good. I didn't really, I didn't want to be on that, for the rest of my life. But I came home and I wasn't satisfied with this kind of vague diagnosis. I had a second, essentially, I had an uncle at the time that paid for me to see a private doctor. It's almost like a family doctor. And I went to see this guy, and he was very old school, but he was really good. And he gave me a really thorough examination, top to bottom. I mean, absolutely everything you can imagine. It lasted a couple of hours at least, when he's just basically looking at me for ages just to see exactly what the problem is, all these movements. Anyway, his decision or his diagnosis was, you've got ankylosing spondylitis. And he also warned me off methotrexate. So within the space of a couple of weeks, I had this really almost conflicting news, let's say, about the diagnosis. One, yeah, you definitely got something wrong, but it's quite vague. Take these pills. The other, specific, and that was really helpful, because at least, okay, it's bad, but at least you know what you're up against.
Exactly. Yeah, you have a target. It's not like this.
Yeah.
You can focus into something. You know specifically what do you have.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's almost like you know what your enemy is. Knowing what the problem is. And that is one good thing about established medicine is they are generally quite good at diagnosing things eventually. I mean, it usually takes years for ankylosing spondylitis. But this was really helpful. This second doctor, he could tell me, you've got this. And also, it was kind of conflicting news in that he really said, oh, you don't take methotrexate, it's poison. But he didn't really tell me what I could take.
He didn't give you an alternative.
He didn't. I remember leaving him, and he sort of said, he was kind of like, oh, no, you really don't want to take methotrexate. It's really bad stuff. And I said, well, what can I do? And he was kind of like, oh, try swimming. Swimming's really good. And so I felt a little bit in the lurch because I didn't know the way forward. I knew I didn't want to take the drugs, or rather, I made the decision, I am going to take the drugs, but only after I've tried everything else first. So at this point, it became a kind of information. As everyone does, I went on the net. I tried to determine everything I could about this ailment, because by this point, it really was wrecking my life.
So
it was.
Chris, I would like to check something. So basically, at this point, you know now that you have AS, right? You know that you want to find an alternative option to taking the immunosuppressors.
Yeah.
Okay. But at this moment, you don't know exactly what to do. Like, that is not the right path for you. But at the same time, you didn't know what to do, right? So you are in this moment like lost. So I would like to jump directly to the next step for me, that is, then how did you heal?
Yeah. Okay. In 3 words, trial and error. Yeah. So
what did you try? Everything.
Everything I could imagine, everything I came across. So in this process of like, okay, you go through a really, well, I certainly went through a very scared phase. When you look up about ankylosing spondylitis, you see the that kind of really scary picture of someone degenerating over time, becoming more, you read about the symptoms, you, well, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like terrifying. You read the prognosis, you read that no one gets better from it. Really scary stuff. And of course, certainly I felt very alone at this time, and also experiencing awful symptoms. By now, the symptoms had gone up to an 8 or a 9.
Mm-hmm.
This was probably about as bad as it got. I remember it was around New Year's Eve, and everyone had gone out to like celebrate New Year's Eve, and I was sat at home on the sofa. I was like this. I was like, and I was just watching the television, and I thought, I'm in so much pain. Maybe I'd be better off if I lie on the floor. And it took me literally half an hour to get off the sofa and lie down on the floor. And I was lying on the floor, and I think, no, it's no better here. And I'd go back onto the sofa, which took another half hour, and I wasn't sleeping. I literally had, on many occasions, I was literally just crying from the pain. And I would be speaking to people. I remember it was Christmas time, and like occasionally I'd be out, at some sort of do, and people would be talking to me, and I couldn't even focus on what they were saying because the pain was so bad.
Intense.
So, and I was reading all this stuff about AS and like how, it's just going to get worse and there's nothing can be done about it and no one gets better. So that was a really, really hard, dark time. I researching, I guess I found points of not exactly success stories, but stories of people who had found some relief, and they often seem to be around diet. And so that was my first thing was, okay, maybe there's some kind of diet connection going on here. So that was the first thing I really investigated. But I mean, over the course of however many years, I tried absolutely everything.
Amazing. So first of all, thank you for opening and sharing your story, because I know this is very intimate, and I can feel so related with you about what you are talking. Like the idea of feeling like completely rigid, or like you don't even know which is the right position. Like if you are sitting is terrible, and if you want to change, it's like you try, you.
Yeah.
Then so I completely relate with that. So I feel that also in my body. Yeah, like I would like to focus, because I mean this is the story, this is what it is, but I would like to focus on the practical side from now on, because so people right now, I think, like we have a clear understanding that you suffer a lot with this. Like it was really intense, and for many years. So yeah, how this change? Like what are the things that you implement that you start to see some benefits? How long it took you to recover from that 9 out of 10 to completely release? What are the main highlights during this experience that they really brings you a change?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So, the first one that definitely worked to a degree, at least, was changing my diet. Like many others, I found my way after months, probably, to something around the low starch diet.
Low
So,
starch.
and
Gluten free?
sorry.
It was also gluten free?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, because I had no starch and almost no sugar.
Okay. Yeah, actually, it's quite difficult to eat gluten and low starch. Like at the moment
Yes.
that you go low starch, you almost immediately eliminate gluten.
Yes, that's right. So, and this I found this is over a period of a few years that this kind of limiting starches and sugars helped. it certainly took my pain levels down, but it really didn't cure, let's say.
When you say down, how much it is? Like how was the pain? Whenever you talk about pain, I would like to know from 0 to 10 and the period of time, so I can understand better precisely what do you refer.
It wasn't clearly linear. It wasn't linear. So okay. I would say it would prevent flares, is what I'd say, or it would minimize flares.
Mm-hmm.
This is over a period of years, and I tried every diet you can think of. I did fasts. I did 2 week-long fasts where I just drank water, did the whole colonic irrigation thing. So it took it down. It took pain down from an 8, let's say, to perhaps a 5. So I was still experiencing pain all the time that would jump around, but it wasn't linear. So I was also getting blood tests every month. And, some days I'd be so sort of good on my diet, and yet the pain and the symptoms and the inflammation would go up. And maybe other months I had been less good on my diet, and it would go, but, the symptoms would be kind of okay. So it was certainly making an impact, but it was really hard to make that very definite, this equals that. It's very hard to make that definite connection. I knew it was working, it was helping, but it wasn't like an absolute breakthrough.
It was not a perfect solution.
It wasn't, no.
And also changing the diet is a stress by itself. Like you need a lot of willpower for changing your diet, or I think so, no? Because there are many situations. So you are putting a lot of effort, you are getting some benefits that, well, is better than nothing for sure, but you don't consider yourself healed, like you continue experiencing pain. So diet was this first inflection point, no? Like this first turning point. What do you think will be the next one? What did you discover? Or maybe if there are not turning points, let me know, and that I am using, like, maybe it was more progressively. What do you think was like the new perspective that helps you to continue improving until where you are right now?
Yeah, there were several strong moments, let's say. I would say the most powerful one of all was seeing a video testimonial by someone who said, really, I don't know if he actually said, I'm completely free of it, but he said, I feel like completely better. I feel like all my symptoms have dropped away. And that, to me, just seeing someone say those words made a huge impact on the mindset. Because until then, I was always I believed the only thing I could do was influence symptoms, or have an impact on symptoms, or limit symptoms in some way through the great difficulty of the diet. And seeing this really opened up the possibility to me that it may be possible to get completely well. And this was a breakthrough in belief, because until then, all the news you get is that it can't be fully healed. The drugs just mask the symptoms. It's not a common belief that actually you can get beyond this completely. In fact, I say it was not a common belief. It was just amazing. It's unique to see this in someone, and it had a huge impact on me. And then I thought, wow, well, if someone else can do it, or almost do it, then it can be done. It can be done. So that was a massive turning point for me.
Do you realize that that's what you're doing right now?
Yes, I do. I do.
Right now, you can be that person for other people. Like, actually, that's why my introduction for you was that one. Like, you are the first person I ever met, and I have the opportunity of talking with, that can say is completely healed. And my way of understanding this illness now is different, because I have the opportunity of knowing you and knowing other people that I'm connecting with. But it completely shifted my beliefs. Like, I really thought this is something that is not possible to heal. This is something that I can only manage. I can manage the problem to make it smaller, but it will be always there. It will be always painful. It will be always appearing sometimes. And it will be always a huge effort to control my habits or my diet or my exercise, like doing as much as I can with the maximum expectation of reducing pain, but not healing completely. And always waking up in the morning with some pain, and never knowing when is going to be the time that I will lose control with my habits. And again, boom, I have a flare, right? So for me, like, it's really very important to change this belief, like to communicate, to say that, like, to find these people. Actually, that we are, you and me, I told you once before, like, who are the people that that they are completely healed. Like, I am trying to find these people, and I am bringing these people here to change this belief, because I think it's very important to change the belief that we can heal, that we can heal completely. So you find someone, a testimonial. It was by any chance by someone from Peter Winslow, or
Yeah, I saw
do you
Peter
remember?
Winslow's. Yeah, the actual video I'm talking about. No, I think it was a testimonial on the Ralph Ruiz site. I don't know if it's there anymore. I also saw Peter Winslow's videos and read his book, and he also seemed to be someone who had completely come through AS. So yeah, I got a lot of benefit from the videos and the information he put out as well. And there were, I spent a lot of time in kind of like chat. There's one called Kick AS, and other kind of sort of chat places and I always gravitated towards success stories, or at least degrees of success, because very understandably, everyone shares their pain. Totally understandably, totally understandable. But I, as soon as I got a hint, like this person's made some progress, I would see what they've done and I'd do it. And that's what I mean by trial and error. I tried everything I came across.
So what is the next step? Like, let's go. Like, how you did it?
Okay.
I know that this question is not easy to answer, because actually we have been talking about this like for hours, you and me, in private. So I know that this question is not like, there is not a straightforward answer, no? But if you have to summarize, like, in the most practical way, like, what do you believe that really changed your health? What it is? What are the things?
Fundamental thing is that belief thing. Like I believe you have to believe it is possible to completely heal from this. That was certainly my experience. That was a fundamental shift. With diet, I found a real breakthrough for me was shifting from just trying. So the theory, as I understand it, behind starch-free is that you are starving the Klebsiella that live within your gut, let's say, and find their way into your bloodstream, and then that triggers the autoimmune response, because the immune system sees the Klebsiella as an invader and attacks them, and in the process causes enormous pain and inflammation throughout your body. That, as I understand it, is the basic theory behind the starch-free diet. Whereas I discovered another diet called the GAPS diet, which is very similar, but its focus is on healing the gut itself, the lining of the gut. So whereas starch-free might starve the Klebsiella that are finding their way into your bloodstream, if you can heal and seal your gut, then nothing gets into your. It stops the trigger happening at that point. It's your autoimmune system is not triggered by anything, Klebsiella or anything else, because all the microbes that are supposed to be in your gut stay in your gut, and that I believe enables someone to, once their gut is fully healed, to then return to a more normal diet or leave their old diet behind. I mean, not completely. You don't want to end up eating junk food and all the rest, but it allows you to go beyond the no starch thing. Whereas other people that I've known that have had success with starch, with the starch free, and there are quite a few, if they wander from the starch free diet, then their symptoms just pile back on. You know, they'll eat that pizza and they'll really suffer for it the next day. So whereas I think if you can heal the gut, it's healing at a deeper level. So that to me was a huge revelation. It was a step up, a massive step up. And that was the diet that I was following in the period where I became completely well. So
is any specific book that you recommend about the GAPS diet?
Yep, it's got a yellow cover. It's written by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. Yeah, well worth reading. If nothing else, just the theory behind it is amazing. And it's a very clear book with like, eat this, don't eat that. Follow these rules. It's a super healthy way of eating, not necessarily easy. I found I was able to transition into it rather than it suggests, it recommends you go to like deep in and you do like an introductory stage at first, which is really very full on. I actually didn't do that. I transitioned from starch free and into the GAPS diet. I transitioned into it sort of quite smoothly because like it's not a million miles from the starch free diet anyway. But the theory in that book is incredible. And you know, it's straightforward. It's not easy to implement, but it is straightforward. And I found, well, within 3 months, I'd say 3 or 4 months, maybe, you know, I was really feeling far, far better.
I see. Okay. And now I want to check something with you because we are talking about the diet. Mm-hmm. The diet is important, mm-hmm. but I follow the diet, not exactly the GAP one, but I have been playing with my diet for the last 7 years. Yeah. And my symptoms, clearly, they are better. I have been doing exercise, but also diet, and I eat really healthy. But I continue having pain. I can't say like you, I am 0 out of 10 for years. I can't say like you, actually, I will have fear with eating a pizza. I have nightmares eating a pizza. Like really thinking that, oh my God, I'm going to destroy my body if I eat a pizza. I would love to, but I have nightmares. So what else? Because there is something more to get that click, you know. And it looks like, okay, the starch diet, I will say always it's supposed, because I think it's very important to understand that this is a mystery. Like actually, we try to guess what is happening inside our bodies, but no one knows exactly what is happening in our bodies. Like human body is as challenging, complex, and beautiful as the whole universe. And we don't have a lens like in science and medicine to really understand what is happening. So any of the rules and theories that we have nowadays, they will be different in 10 years. Now we talk about some things, and in 10 years we will talk about another thing. So I will say like this, that there is the theory of the Klebsiella, like Klebsiella is in the intestine, and we don't want to feed that bacteria because it gets to your blood, and then you have an immunologic reaction. So then there is a second layer. Okay, instead of low starch, we go with GAP diet, or any diet that is basically related with healing your gut, right? Like recovering your gut so you don't have a leaky gut. That will be more resistant and more resilient to whatever your microbiome of your gut it is. In general, healing your gut is also healing your microbiome. Okay, so you get that. But even though you can do that, and then you can go back to pain. And there are other things that can be having a super negative impact into the health of our intestine, into the balance of our microbiome, even though we follow a perfect diet. Something that is there like every single day, every fucking second. You know what I'm talking about? Like, so what else did you do to get that click?
Sure. Okay. So what we talked about until now is broadly the physical thing, the diet, the health of the gut. And that's really important. there's another level that, to my surprise, turned out to be extremely important. And that is let's say, the psychological, the emotional level. And my introduction to that was really through a book by Dr. John Sarno called Healing Back Pain. So Dr. Sarno was a chiropractor, I believe, and he used to manipulate people to help them with their back pain for years. And then he began to realize that a lot of people's pain had begun around the time of a kind of traumatic experience or a difficult experience in their life. And he sort of pursued this and actually realized that if the stressful or the traumatic experience in their life could be resolved, that their back pain resolved. And he got to the point where he used to no longer manipulate people at all and just entirely focus on their, let's say, their psychological well-being. And he wrote a extremely successful book about this called Healing Back Pain. He's got a website that is called Thank You Dr. Sarno, which is purely people tapping in and going, listen, all I've done is read your book and I feel so much better. So I think that really opened up the link between...
I'm just sharing the screen to see, this is the book you are talking about, Healing Back
Yes,
Pain.
exactly.
By Dr. Sarno.
Yeah.
There is also an amazing documental film about the story of Dr. Sarno. For me also, this was key to believe the mind-body connection. Super important, because as you say, also is a doctor, like it's not like many times when we talk about the emotional side, it look like, woo, these people is smoking joints and I don't know, woo, healing, no, like spiritual nerds. And this guy, Dr. Sarno, it's a doctor that almost every people completely ignore him, like at that moment, because this was in the 80s, I think. Like imagine in that moment, if now some people struggle to believe this, imagine in the 80s. So he was able to heal thousands of people with chronic back pain. I have to say that it's not specifically AS, but back pain in general, chronic, and without a structural problem, without touching them. Like all the team that he had, there were psychologists. He didn't have chiropractors for healing people from back pain. That's incredible. And he was healing people. So
it's incredible, isn't it? And
yeah. So for me, even though I have to ask you something, when I found Dr. Sarno, that I recommend everyone to see the film because it's a beautiful film, like they did a great job, I read the book. When I read the book and they describe the personality characteristics, like the traits that people with chronic back pain have, I felt so related. Like I was reading that and I was thinking, oh my God, that's me. I have all the patterns of a person, of 80% of the patterns, But even though I read the book, I didn't experience a full recovery. I read it. It's a long book. I can say it changed my way of thinking and understanding about pain as something useful. Pain is there in theory, as Dr. Sarno say, to protect us. Like it's a signal of protection. It's your body trying to protect you and sometimes to distract you from your emotional pain. Like it's a way, like magicians when they say like, woohoo, look here, but the magic is happening, woohoo, on the other hand, no? Like it's like the body trying to get your attention in a way that you don't focus on your emotional pain. And that's actually quite true because when you have pain, almost the only thing that you can think about is about your pain. Like it's very difficult to be thinking in other things. That's your main problem. So, well, any case, I read this book and for me, I didn't heal. So once you discover this, what are the actions that you like? Did you study more books? Did you have a mentor? Did you journal? Did you do affirmations? Like, how did you bring that into the practice of your life? If there is a way, how long it took you to start realizing like, okay, this is bringing some benefit. Like now, I can feel the benefit. It's not only I believe it because I see many people heal and testimonials and it makes sense, but how long it took you to start seeing benefits from these actions? That makes sense.
I mean, yes. It's certainly like reading that book was a part of a kind of ongoing, let's say, investigation into, I mean, as I say, I was trying absolutely anything and everything that might help. And there's a whole world of things that we haven't mentioned that basically didn't help. So this book, it's really significant, but it is just one of many, I guess, I was reading at the time, and many different areas I was exploring. So over a period, it's kind of quite hard to quantify in terms of a sort of time scale. But how I implemented it in my life was I found about halfway through the book, there's a list of 12 affirmations that you do say daily. And I used to do that. And that did make me think about it. I don't know, 2 or 3 times a day. It helped bring the entire theory into 12 very easy statements that I would just say to myself and consider. And I think maybe one of the strongest ones amongst that was that the pain is to distract us from looking at the psychological side, as you said. So I also used to journal. I mean, maybe not in a very conventional way. I've always found journaling or keeping the practice of keeping a diary in general, I think I have done for many years anyway, because it helped me make sense of the day. And I think, make sense of your life to a degree, really, because you have all these events during a day. And if at the end of the day you write it down in a diary, you somehow assimilate them and put them into a way you can understand. And I took the basic idea, which is that there are unresolved emotions within us, or unresolved parts of our life, or feelings that have been suppressed. I mean, I think it's pretty often the case that many people with AS have had maybe something unresolved, or it might be a dramatic trauma in their life, or it may be a difficult ongoing, it might be a difficult relationship or a stressful work situation. There can be loads of triggers for it, but it's something that for whatever reason that we haven't yet resolved, or that's how I looked at myself with it. And my journaling would take the form of, I've tried to detect unresolved things in my life. Not like you're going to have like this perfect life where everything's just, stress-free and wonderful, everything's resolved, everything's perfect. But I had to dig around. Like I had a bit of introspection and thinking, okay, this is maybe a regret, something I didn't do, or maybe this is something that I feel I should have done, or I used to have these dreams at this age. What's happened to them? Have I parked them? So I would take, as feelings came up, I would try and honestly look at them, and I'd pop that down onto a bit of paper, like a big bit of paper, and I'd give it a name. And then I would just mind map out from there. I would say, okay, this makes me feel this makes me think of that. I would explore. So you end up with a map of basically your internal psychological, emotional landscape. And in particular, the things that you might not, that you don't really feel comfortable with. Because the whole thing about emotions that we find uncomfortable is that we don't want to experience them. So we hide them away, by one means or another. We might drink, or we might distract ourselves in loads of ways. So I found that really useful. And also in terms of behaviors. So for instance, we may have behaviors, I think you touched on it, the traits you're describing, like the traits of many traits of people with AS and other similar things. And to be honest, I don't really know what they all are. Maybe you.
Yeah, I remember this. Like, I have to say thank you to Ralph, because I copied this from Ralph. Like, he did a great summary, and he's going to be here the 26th of October. So, yay, he will talk with us. But yeah, he basically, like, in a nutshell, what he explained is Well, what you're saying right now is pain is a symptom and it's a manifestation of repressed emotions. So the main personality characteristic is trying to escape from your emotions in general, like escaping from whatever you don't want to experience. Whatever you don't want to experience that is going to make you feel uncomfortable. That can be something about yourself. That can be you don't want to experience a relationship with someone. You don't want to go to an exam. You don't want to go to a specific job. You don't want to deal with a person, or you don't want to experience an emotion. Okay, so there are things that you don't want to experience, and your coping mechanism is escaping from that. So when you, because in life we can't escape from everything because it's impossible, like you will be running away all the time, and sometimes maybe it's your father or your mother or your partner. So sometimes you can't escape. Sometimes it's about yourself. So then you develop escaping behaviors. And these escaping behaviors are perfectionism. And you will say, how this behavior can be an escaping mechanism? Well, because behind perfectionism, what you have is a strong fear of experiencing failure. You become a people pleaser because behind being a people pleaser, you have extreme fear of not being accepted, of not being loved. You become a stoic. Like, stoic philosophy, like this stoic behavior that is basically like trying to be neutral or positive by by choosing wisely your judgments about whatever happened around you. That's quite smart. I think this is one of the smartest coping mechanism because it looks like very healthy. And there is some health in that mechanism. You develop that because you don't want to feel sadness. You don't want to be disappointed with life. And then you develop a stoic personality. There are other people that they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. They will have a difficult situation. They will suffer during some time, and that's all. And they are not going to be reading 20 books about how to be happy or how to change your personality or and also it can be anxiety. Anxiety is or trying basically to super prepare for whatever is going to come in the future as a way of reducing failure. Or you can be also overthinker, or being worried about possible risks so you don't have to experience them. So in general, what you can see here is that there is, and all of them with quite a tendency of obsession, because depending of the intensity, like there's having some perfectionism can be good, having some, but the thing is when you have this point of obsession, like it's quite unstoppable in your head. And these are like the behaviors. And actually, I don't know if you feel related with that when you were nowadays. I'm curious about this. Like, do you feel related with any of these behaviors or?
Yes. So in my experience, one behavior, let's say, that I identified in quite a dramatic way, I don't know if it fits into which of those kind of behaviors you've described it would fit with. Probably people pleasing, it would be the closest. But I know that I've had a tendency, even as a kid, of like trying to calm people down. So like when I was a kid, my mum would worry about this and that, and I was always going, "Oh, it's be fine, be fine." So essentially, like trying to defuse people's worries. And I think that's been a personal sort of tendency, or just sort of behavior of mine. And a kind of quite dramatic example of how this played out in terms of the kind of pain and the kind of theories we're describing is I found myself in a very stressful situation in a car. It wasn't a dangerous situation. We didn't have a crash, but I was in a situation where I felt like everyone was screaming at me. Felt like everyone was screaming at me. And my response was to just like keep my head down, keep calm, even though like inside I wanted to sort of shout back at people. I thought, no, I've got to keep calm. I've got to get this situation sorted. Right? I've got to stay calm, stay focused, just literally absorb the stress of the situation and get us through it. And that's what I did. And when I got back, when I finally got out of the car where this thing was going on, and this situation carried on for like hours, I would have thought. So it was quite intense. Like we're all in a car together. When I finally got out, I just had immense pain in my shoulders, like immense, to the point that I couldn't stand up. I was just completely kind of crippled by this pain. It was enormous pain. And I lay down and I went to sleep. And in the morning, pain was gone. And I thought, well, where did that pain go? Where did that pain go? And I had let's say, a realization or an understanding that this pain was not down to something I'd eaten or, straight off the diet or anything like that. I had the understanding that this pain was basically the stress that I'd been absorbing in that car, with no outlet for it. And I'm like a sponge. As soon as you take it up, you stay calm, you don't let it out, you don't shout back at anyone. So keep your head down. And with that understanding, the pain had gone. The pain had completely gone. And actually that was
just with the understanding.
Yeah, it came at the same time. It came at like waking up thinking, well, the pain is completely gone. Why is it gone? If that was down to something I'd miseaten, let's say, it would probably still be there. It was the understanding that it was the stress that I kind of absorbed with nowhere to go, right? Nowhere, no outlet for it. So it literally, that expression, you're taking the weight of the world on your shoulders. It felt like that. It was like, bang, it's on my shoulders. It was like, couldn't even lift my head up. And how did the understanding affect the pain? I think it was because it revealed to me I had this behavior. And once you have the understanding you have a behavior, you realize that you have a choice. And that doesn't mean that you're never going to be stressed again, or you never find yourself in a stressful situation, or you're going to handle everything perfectly. It's more like at that point, I made the decision, right, this is clearly my pattern. I'm not going to I'm just mentally made the decision, I'm not going to accept blame anymore. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? It's just like, I'm doing my best, all right? And I made that mental decision, like, no, I'm just not going to accept blame. And if I need to shout back at someone, I'm going to do it. And really, that was the last significant pain I ever felt from AS. So I think there is enormous value in this thing of behaviors. So, for instance, if maybe a more subtle example might be, say you're perhaps in a difficult relationship. That may be, this is just like completely off the top of my head in terms of trying to think of an equivalent example that might be more subtle, and you're not even aware possibly of the stress or difficulty of being in this relationship. And you kind of, part of you knows that you don't want to be in it, but you're in it. And maybe for various practical reasons, you've got to be in it. So this might lead to a very low level or chronic stress that you just have to suppress on a daily basis, for whatever reason. It's something it's like eating an energy or a food that's not good for you, but you kind of keep doing it because it's the situation you're in. Or it could be like a job that's really not good for you. And so you can have, I think you can have stress, chronic stress that you're unaware of. Over years, maybe. And of course, we have all our coping mechanisms to deal with it, or not approach it, or not change our job. Then maybe, not get out of the situation we're in. We just can't put up with it. And this it's like a negative energy that we are constantly taking in. And if we're not doing anything about it, then I think that can result in physical pain. It's physical pain. If we look at this in sort of John Sarno terms, then we're daily suppressing something that we don't want to experience. And the pain is the kind of the messenger or even the coping mechanism by which we don't have to experience it, or we don't have to address that issue because it's scary. And maybe we feel trapped. We can feel trapped in things, and we can't see a way out. And that is a terrifying place to be. So I just give that example as maybe a quite dramatic illustration of how it dropped into me, of how this process might be working. But I think there's a lot of more subtle ways that it can, be ongoing in our lives.
Yeah.
But exploration is the key. You've got to honestly explore what is going on. What do I feel is unresolved? What do I feel is difficult?
For me, well, first of all, I think that moment in that car was for you, because we talked about this before. I think like that sounds, and when I hear that for the first time, I really was like, wow, that's such a good example. Like I can imagine being in that car. I can imagine having that situation. And it's not that people is pointing you or throwing stress to you that they are. It's how do you deal with that? Like,
Yes.
is that staying calm and quiet and everything is good when in reality inside you are like, but
Yeah.
you don't do that.
Yeah.
You are here.
Yeah, exactly.
And that in some ways it can be a little bit different depending on the situation, but that's what you will find also in perfectionism, in stoicism, in different ways of basically trying to stay chill, because in reality what you have fear of is experiencing your anger. Like in that moment, what you have fear is about experiencing your anger. And what can that anger do to others, probably? To yourself and to others. What is going to happen with my relationship with my friends if I release this anger? I learn to be loved by being a nice person. Yes. So if I show this, I'm a fucking monster. Like no one is going to love me, right? Then we have fear to experience that fire energy. And that fire energy, we try to cool down with meditation, with a new approach, by staying quiet or chill. Feel so related with that. And there is no, like, the main goal of today, to be honest, is to talk with you and to share your experience, because for some people, as you have been for me, you are the first person I ever met that is completely healed. I know that this is not easy to get. Like there is not like we don't have today, like, okay, you have to do 1, 2, 3, done. No, we are not in that point yet, but we are going to do our best to find it. But you can have a great impact just by sharing your story, and being a person that is completely healed. And I think it's important to connect also why that can be happening, like why emotions can have such a impact in our pain. And because if not, it sounds like for some people, and I know, like, look, we are not here to convince anyone. Really, we are not, like, this is exploring. For me, this is a process of exploring the truth and finding the way. And for me, my way in this process, when I hear you this, and with all the things that I am reading and learning, first of all, the mind have a connection with the body. No doubts. Actually, the mind is in the body. The mind is an organ like your eye or your stomach. So it is connected. It is the body. It is not another thing. It is the body. The mind is the body. It's connected all around. Two, if you think about it, for me, to give you a stupid example, but for me it's so clear. If I think in porn or someone that is sexy, my dick get hard. It's so simple. You can do it 2 minutes in your bed. Think about something that you get horny with. And maybe, well, depending of your, but it could happen that you get hard and you are not thinking I am going to get hard. You can't control that. But just thinking for 1 minute, 2 minutes, you will see blood coming to your dick, you will feel it, and it will be clear. That happened in 2 minutes. What happened during your whole life when you are suppressing emotions, having thoughts repeatedly, constantly in a specific direction that can have an impact in your gut? For sure. Actually, it does. There is no any doubt. Like, if you check which are the 3 main categories or ways of impacting the gut, one is the food, the other one is the exercise, and the other one is the mind, your emotions, your stress. It changes all your immunologic response. It changes all your hormonal responses. And also, it changes even our connections, like in terms of brain synapses, neurons, connections. It's very, very interesting. This because there is one area for me, like one pathway of pain that is my emotions have an impact in my gut. And because I'm trying to take care of my gut, now even though I eat everything perfect, I continue having pain. It's coming from here, it's changing my hormones, it's connected. Okay, this is one option. But there is another option, or maybe both are happening simultaneously, because the body is not linear, it's interconnected, it's so complex, so much that we cannot imagine. Like anything of what I am seeing here is such a simplification of what really it is. So the other path is, that is also what Dr. Sarno is in this trend, is when we experience emotional pain, suffering, the brain is activating the same specific areas that when we have physical pain. Physical pain is not created in the body. Physical pain is created in the mind. You have signals, but these signals, they don't have a meaning until your brain label the meaning, create the meaning. So your brain is in charge of creating pain. And then sometimes the brain is not doing this properly. And if you do a scanner of the brain of people that they are having physical pain, and if you do a scanner of people that they are suffering emotionally, the areas of the brain that are activated are almost the same. So the brain can create pain from air, let's say, like from without a structural signal. And actually, so this is like the two main pathways and how emotions are connected. No, so sorry for being too long, but I think it's important to mention this part, because if not emotions, like I know that for many people it's like emotions. Like this is not the path. We are in 2024 and we are changing the medicine and we are discovering new ways. And we know that the way that we have is not working well. And all the people like you that I have been talking with, and that, well, until now, of course, I would love to see more people. But until now, all the people that are in a situation like you, that they are completely healed, is at some point they approach this in an emotional way. At some point, with the other parts. I love the quote that you told me once of, how you say that we have to fight back pain, no, we have to fight AS in all the dimensions, no? You do it in all the layers.
Absolutely. I mean, sorry,
Please
carry on.
No, please. No, I was.
You've described many things really well, Alvaro. You've really put into words, just very well, a lot of concepts that are really quite hard to describe. The emotional. What was I going to say?
I asked you like that. I love that quote that you told me once.
Yes.
Of we have to fight AS in all the dimensions that is fighting us.
Is that it?
No, how was that quote? You told me something like that.
It will potentially take away. I remember when I was really sick, and I just feel like it's dismantling my life one painful step at a time. I get the iritis, and you think, oh, what next? And it's just, and it can just take your life apart, your relationships, your family life, obviously your health, everything, your mental health. It batters you on so many levels, or it can affect you on so many ways, physically, mentally, emotionally. But the only good thing about that is we have potentially many ways to get back at it. So on the physical level, we've got the exercise, we've got the diet, got the relaxation techniques. On the mental level, also the relaxation, the meditation, the exploration of our kind of mental and emotional world. And we have there are a lot of avenues in to make progress against it. And I think my ongoing attitude was behind, like I say, trial and error. It's like, I'll give it a go. I'll give it a go. Initially I was like, how could an emotion somehow result in like this huge pain in my wrist or me limping? It just didn't seem possible that an emotion could be the source of such obvious physical pain. But I came to realize that in my view, there certainly is a connection, and understanding what exactly that connection is is not easy. It's a bit like trying to say, okay, what is stress? Is stress physical, or is it mental, or is it emotional? It's hard to say, really. You know, it's like a mental and perhaps an emotional thing, but we know that stress has a physical impact, don't we? Because, like, you know, if you're really stressed, you can't eat, you feel sick, you shake, you know, all sorts of things. We know that actually long-term chronic stress, vague as that word is, can lead to like heart problems, heart pressure, certainly mental health problems. So it's a really...
And gut problems too.
And gut problems,
like
that's it.
Gut problems,
Yes.
digestion problems.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So absolutely, yes. So can stress be the cause of something like AS? I would say yes. Is it, you know, I know some people, you know, so the diet is useful, or a diet I think can be useful, because you can address that stress, even if the cause of stress that may have injured your gut, even though that is stress could be the cause, actually we can positively influence it in a like physical way by changing our diet. And so we, you know, do that. But also we've got to address the mental level and the emotional level too.
For sure. And you know what? I think actually that is very important to combine the things, you know, because for me, in the combination, there is a great success. Because for me, the three levels are emotions in this order. Someone is calling me. The three levels are: one, emotions; two, the diet; three, the exercise, in this level. But they have something interesting, these three levels. From the first one to the last one, they are more difficult to address. Like the emotional one is more challenging. The diet is a little bit less, and the exercise, I will say, is the easier one. But the priority is the other way around. So the way of having a fast impact, I will say also, is doing some movement. You will see that benefits in minutes. Like if you are completely stuck and not moving, and you start moving your body, like chill, walking, nothing too crazy, you will see some benefits. You will go from a 9 to a 7 in the same day, no doubt. But it's not forever, it's short term. If you want to go middle term, do the diet. You will see benefits maybe in weeks, maybe in days, maybe in weeks or months. That's what I am seeing, what I experience in myself, and probably you too, is quite fast. It takes a little bit more of a challenge. If you want to see long-term benefits, you have to go to the emotional part. It's the more complex one. And actually, it can be a little bit scary too. And I think all of them, you can benefit from them, because when you start doing exercise, you start feeling better. And then it's easier to follow the diet. And when you have a better diet and you feel even better, it's easier to address the emotions. Because if you are stuck as fuck, you can't address emotions, you can't change your diet, you can't do almost nothing. So it's a process where I think it's important to fight with the yes. I love that quote, to fight with the yes in all the dimension that is fighting with us. And yeah, and in this combination, I think is where you can find the most success, no? But even though, well, to finish for today, first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing. And personally also, Chris, like, thank you. I told you today on WhatsApp, like, you are an important person for me, Chris. You are right now an important person for me in my life, really. Like, I remember that day that I text you on Instagram 1 year ago, maybe, or 1.5 years ago. And I was desperate in that moment. I was having so much pain. And I was desperate. I was like, oh my God, I need to find someone to help me somehow. You know, and I text you and like, hey, I would like to talk with you. And you immediately say yes. And you can't imagine how happy I was the day that, like, I was thinking, he's not going to answer me. He don't know nothing about me. And for me, you have become an important pillar, because even though right now I continue having some pain, I am better, but I continue having some pain. You give me hope, you know? And I know that today We don't have the perfect answer for people. I'm sorry for that. We know that actually, like Chris and me, we know that before because we have been trying to get a recipe, but there is not a perfect recipe nowadays. But there is something that you can get from watching this and that I get from hearing you. Something very simple, something very clear. You can recover from this, and that's a big change.
Yeah, it can be done. It can be done. It's not necessarily quick, but it can be done. And I was almost surprised when I got well. You know, when I finally got well, I was almost surprised. It's like, even though that's what I've been trying to do for years, for it finally just to melt away and happen, you know, was just fantastic. And, you know, I'm really not trying to convert anyone or preach to anyone or even just say, yeah, you got to do this or that. It's purely sharing my experience as best I can. And so thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. I hope this has been of benefit to someone. I'm very happy to talk to, just share any experience that I can for people's benefit. And I think the whole AS Warriors project and aim is fantastic because, you know, it is possible to get better, but we have to explore exactly how it can be done.
And there is nothing that I would like to do more with my life at this moment of my life than discovering that. Like, it's such a pleasure for me to really to have the opportunity in my life right now, like of turning my biggest problem into something useful, into an opportunity for me, you know, and also having the opportunity, like in terms of economical freedom and time, that I can really use my time for this, for talking with you, for talking with Ralph, for talking with Peter. That I hope he don't have any problem, but we are going to talk. I know that we are going to talk. I really want to talk with Peter. We are
They're
managing, so
all amazing people, and they've all suffered with exactly this,
with the same.
and the pain is, you know, the pain is undeniable. It was the bane of my life for years, as I know it is for many people now. And to crack it is just an, you know, it's fantastic. And if I can at all help towards that in anyone else, then I will gladly do it.
You are already doing that, Chris, with your time, with your message, with being here. Like you do this, you know. Also, some people say like, hey, I'm sure that I know if you are doing this, it's because you want to make money, or and maybe one day it's possible to make some money from healing a lot of people. I wouldn't complain about that if we are changing the life of many people. But I know like you do this because you decide to help others that are in your same situation, is right?
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, I almost I said to myself many times when I was unwell, if one day I get out of this, I'm going to make sure. You know, I almost made a promise to myself or to someone. You know, yeah, if I get through this, you know, I'm gonna do my absolute best to help other people. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to help a little bit.
It's a pleasure. So last thing, today we covered a lot of things. We start at the beginning with the first question that basically we discovered that you can eat a pizza without having pain, that you have been years without pain. But for me, it sounds like a miracle. And you told us like how have been your process, how you were like 12 years with pain, the last years with extreme pain. You were diagnosed. Later you find another doctor that told you, hey, don't go that path. Find like a natural way. You discover the natural way by changing your diet, by taking care of your gut, by very important, not taking care of your gut so you don't have these immunologic reactions. And then you discover Dr. Sarno and all the emotional side, and you have this experience in this car where you say, I will never continue absorbing stress in this way. I will never continue allowing to get stuck all these energies into my body. And from there, little by little, you start recovering in a process of a few months, right? Until where you are today, that you have been now 7 years without having pain. and now you're helping others. So it has been such a pleasure to talk with you. And the last thing I would like to tell you, if you have to say, like in a nutshell, like in 30 seconds, what are 3 things that people can do today? Like what will be to improve their pain?
Learn to relax. Learn to relax on a deep level and explore. Our immune system is in a state of like hyperactivity, hyper alertness. Yeah, we've got to sort of look inside and look at what's going on in our lives and do our best to understand and resolve the stresses and unresolved emotions in our life.
Fantastic.
So, and believe it can be done. Belief is key. The belief that it can be done is just fundamental, is key.
Super. So, and well, last thing, do you nowadays, do you recommend doing any specific exercise? Because I'm sure some people, like there was one person, Fernando, in my community that say, what exercise do you do nowadays? Do you follow any specific exercise for not having back pain? Or now is not related for you, your exercise?
It's not related. I mean, I still do quite a lot of yoga. I have got a really simple 10-minute routine that's based on Qigong. But I mean, I've done this for ages. It's just like tapping the body, bit of swinging, bit of movement, gentle movement. I think gentle movement is key. Gentle rhythmic movement. All the time I was ill, I was able to do it, even if you can't do it very well. It's just gentle Qigong related movements I find are best because they're gentle, they don't cause extra stress or difficulty. I know a lot of people love going down the gym and that sort of thing. I've just found that the gentler end of exercise is probably the best, especially when you've got a lot of pain.
So, Chris, with this we are finishing. I would like to say to everyone that is hearing us that this is the first episode of Alvaro Go AS Warriors podcast. I'm not sure right now about the name. We will see. Any case, it's the process of learning and discovering for myself and for others how to heal. I don't have the perfect answer, but I will find it for sure. And it's such a pleasure to have you here, really. If anyone want to continue checking like more content around this and discovering the truth about AS, like you have here, subscribe to the YouTube channel. This is going to be in YouTube. You can click the subscribe button, very important. So you will continue receiving this content. This content is going to be very specific, like, or you subscribe or you are not going to find this content because no one searched for this, like very little people. So if you find this useful, I promise you I will continue getting people like Chris bringing their own stories and sharing all my learnings in my own physical body. And also the people that you subscribe, you can join the WhatsApp community, AS Warriors, where we have like a support community for everything is for free. We just help each other. Actually, we don't have nothing to sell. We are doing this for helping. And in the community, we are supporting each other so much. We are sharing so many videos, diets, tricks, exercise, and just knowing other people with AS, I think is also very important. We didn't talk about that, but I think that's quite very important to feel that you are not alone, that you can release this emotion, that this is what is happening for you is happening to other people. We even have like sometimes like weekly or monthly meetings to meet each other that you are super invited, Chris, if you want to come one day. I hope that you enjoy as much as me. Chris, thank you, and thank you.
Thank you, Alvaro.
It's a pleasure. Bye-bye.